This week's video is sponsored by Squarespace.
Wow, hello everybody, hope you're all doing great. It's so funny, we've come out to this area called Nymph Falls, which is up island a little bit, and the intention was to come and photograph the waterfall that's behind the camera there, but I noticed from the other side of the river here this flowering dogwood, and I just love dogwoods. So the dogwood is British Columbia's provincial flower, and a lot of people have them in their gardens. They're more of a hybrid variety, but these of course are the wild ones, and they're so beautiful to photograph. But of course, come out to a waterfall, what do I photograph? A tree. So, I'm just looking for a few of the flowers that are perhaps together or in a good combination. I found there's two flowers here that are kind of out on their own, so I'm thinking of giving those a try. There isn't a huge abundance of flowers on this particular specimen. I've noticed that there's a few other dogwoods on the other side of the river, but I'm not sure how low the flowers go. So I'm just going to work with this one for now. Okay, now to be totally honest, I probably should have brought the Nikon D850 today, because I really want to try and get rid of that background, and the only way to do that is by using a longer focal length. I could use a shorter focal length, but even wide open or 5.6, you're still getting quite a bit of that background in there. It's not that blurry. So I try to back off with the 1:200. Problem with the 1:200 is that the size of the flowers, the size that I want in the frame, I can't get the lens close enough to focus close enough. Now luckily I have the little extension tube with me, so I'm able to focus just that little bit closer. I'm going to be shooting at probably around f5.6, but I think what I might do is focus stack this one. So take one image of the flower in the foreground in sharp focus, and then another one of the other flower in the rear in sharp focus, and then combine the two. They're almost parallel, or they're almost like I'm trying to get the camera back parallel to the two centers of the flowers, so that I don't have to stop down that far. But I just can't do that because I'd have to raise the camera quite high to do that. And my tripod is pretty much at its full height right now because there's quite a few potholes and such in this riverbed here. So I think it's going to work. The background is still a little bit busier than I would like. If I was using the D850, then I would probably use the 70 to 200 or even the 200 to 500, so I can back off a little bit, use a narrower angle of view and really blur that background out nicely. Well, it's a little frustrating because the wind's picked up, so I've had to, now luckily I'm using a shallow depth of field, so the shutter speed is relatively fast anyway, but I've had to up the ISO to 800, so I'm ISO 800, f-stop 5.6 at 1/500th of a second. Something else that I should mention about using longer focal lengths for close-ups. Another good reason to use a longer focal length, other than being able to blur that background, is that they enable you to have more working distance. So the problem with, say, like a 50mm macro lens is that if you want one-to-one or want to enlarge the subject in the frame, you have to get very close to that subject. And that doesn't really give you a lot of working distance from your subject. The nice thing about using a longer focal length though is that you're away from your subject further distance, so you're able to work with it much easier without disturbing it, and also pick and choose the backgrounds that you want. So I'm now taking another shot of the same subject, kind of as an illustration. I've just moved over to the left a little bit and I've chosen a different background, so now I have a grey background. So the first shot I had greenery in the background, so obviously the background will be green, but now there's a stump in this background, so now we have a grey background. So it's much easier to choose colours that perhaps contrast nicer with your subject matter when you're further away from them. Right, as you can see, the river is actually quite wide. What's really interesting though is that the water levels stay quite consistent throughout the year because the river is actually dammed. And what's neat about this area is that there's all these potholes and rock formations within the sandstone. So you get little areas like this where you'll have all these individual cascades going into potholes, or there'll be some interesting rocks. So that's what I'm concentrating on. Now, for scenes like this, you know, obviously the river as a whole photograph doesn't really interest me. It's more of the intimate details. So what I'm looking for is anomalies or specific areas where there might be an individual rock that stands out from the rest of the scene. And in this case, there's one rock down here that's quite round. So I'm zeroed in on that, and then I have the cascades falling into that little gully there. So I think it might be quite interesting. So this cascade, it goes, I don't know, it goes for about 40 meters or so on this side of the river, and it goes into somewhat of a bit of a cleft, and the water all runs down to the side here. But what's really neat is there's this standing pool of water in the foreground, and it's quite calm. So if you're down low enough, you get a nice reflection of the waterfall. So I'm trying to get a bit of an abstract. There's a neat rock that's got water flowing behind it and then around it. But to get a nice clear reflection of it, I have to get down quite low, and that's what I've done here. I think it'll be really neat. I just zeroed in on the waterfall and the rock and the reflection. I've eliminated the top because it's quite cluttered. Lots of trees and sticks and stuff that don't really help the composition. Yeah, I think it's going to be really neat. I've put on a case ND8, so I'm able to use a slightly faster shutter speed than the last shot I took. I've got it to, let's see here, I think it's ISO 250 f/16 at 1/5 of a second. it almost plays tricks on your eyes, because as the water's falling, of course the reflection is falling the other way, so it's a bit of an optical illusion.
Once again, I'd like to thank Squarespace for supporting my channel and sponsoring this week's video. One of my favorite features of a Squarespace website is the ability to quickly and efficiently update a gallery or page either from a desktop computer or while on the fly using the Squarespace app from my mobile device. Loading multiple images onto a page is quick and offers the ability to change a design or page quickly and elegantly without any coding knowledge. Want to sell your products? No problem. Setting up shop is also quick and intuitive. Sound interesting? Why not head over to squarespace.com and try it for free? And if you like what you find, use the code AdamGibbs for 10% off your first purchase.
Wow, good morning everybody. You're probably wondering why I'm wearing different hip waders today. Well, I'm actually at Nymph Falls again. I was here yesterday, which is the first part of this video, and now this is the Monday. So we've come back, and the reason why we've come back is that originally Colin and I had come over on the other side of the river here, and Brian decided to stay on that side of the river, and he ended up not getting any decent shots. And I was telling him how wonderful this side is, so kind of felt bad for him. So we've come back, and I lent him my hip waders while I wear these ones. So that's why we're here. And to be honest with you, yesterday I felt like I could spend a little bit more time here. I felt a little bit rushed at the end there. So the composition that I'm looking at right now is one that I took yesterday, except from the other side there. And this is a section that I really love. I love the complexity of the water going in all different directions. So if I can combine that or contrast it with, say, an interesting rock formation, or in this case it's the boulders at the bottom, then I think it'll work really well. I've put on some ND filters again because it's quite bright today and the sun comes out every now and then, just to slow that shutter speed down to right now I'm shooting at half a second. I'll probably take some images at a slightly faster shutter speed as well. The weather can't seem to make up its mind. 1 minute it's raining and the next minute it's sunny. As you can see, when it's sunny, just behind me here and off in the distance here. It's just too contrasty. So any highlights are going to come out way too bright. As you see now, the sun has gone behind a cloud, so it's really evened out the light. So it's much easier to deal with, and actually now it's starting to rain. So what I'm concentrating on here is I took some shots of this area yesterday with the reflection, but I really like this this rock formation. Kind of breaks up the rock a little bit and the waterfall. And there's also some really nice little potholes in the cliff there. So there's a number of different cascades. So I'm photographing down this channel, and you get 3 or 4 of these cascades in the distance.
Once again, thank you ever so much for following along on this week's little adventure. If you'd like to support my channel, please be sure to give me the old thumbs up. It's always appreciated. If you'd like to support my channel in other ways, please head on over to my website, where you'll find a number of items for sale, including my new zine, Antarctica. Go check it out.
Chasing All with Gavinard Castle. Oh. Now you're talking. Ooh.